Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sigma Prism channel. Today, I'm joined with Jesper. He is the project lead of GuapSwap, and we're going to talk about mining. Welcome, Jesper.
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. We felt like it, or I felt it was necessary to kind of have general discussions about mining in general. A lot of people might be interested in mining, may not know they have the capabilities within their computer to begin mining right with the technology they have in their home. And I figured right off the bat, I just wanted to ask you what first got you interested in ASIC resistant GPU mining.
Well, when I got into it, I didn't even know that there was something called ASIC resistant mining. I
Sure.
started looking into crypto back in 2017, just as like a retail investor, but didn't get in because I didn't know enough. And then I researched, and then in 2021, I had some surplus hardware from a tech startup that I used to run. And I thought, man, let me finally get into this mining thing and see what it's all about. And then after having mined ETH for, I think maybe 6 months or something, I started looking into the history of ETH and how the ETH devs have treated the miners. And then there was always this talk of the merge. There's this thing called the merge. It's coming up. What are we going to do about it? And then I started looking into altcoins. And then the more I researched on the different altcoins, like I mined a little bit of Raven, didn't get into Flux for a while, looked into Chia and Helium. And
Mm,
then I stumbled across like maybe May, June of 2021, I stumbled across ergo. Is like way down the list of what to mine, like very unprofitable. And I started looking into it. And previously, I had been involved with another community of a CPU mineable coin, which I won't mention because I wasn't too happy about the community. It's a smaller coin, but I was very unhappy with the community there. But I wanted to like get invested in the community, and then Ergo started popping up. And then the more I read about Ergo with the low power usage, the ASIC resistance, the ability to pool mine, because obviously you couldn't pool mine it at first. It was like, okay,
hmm.
there's something about this. There are these ties to Cardano. There's this really smart guy called Alex who's helping to develop it. Like, and then I was, yeah, this is probably one to watch. And then, like, I think August of last year, I was like, okay, there are these talks about the emission changes and how long is it gonna be? How long am I gonna be able to get all these coins now? So I thought, okay, gonna set a goal and start mining some ergo. So I did that for like from August to March of this year, just to get a good like diversification of my portfolio. And I'll shamefully say that right now I'm eking out the last remnants of ETH and getting it swapped directly to Bitcoin through two miners.
Sure. Well, thank you for that introduction. I think a lot of people might be concerned, right? Looking at Ethereum, which has been in the GPU mining market, the big player and typically the only player, if miners only concern themselves with profitability. But now, as they leave and we understand more about the importance of long term strategies when mining a project, it may not only be a question of short term profit. Um, we're seeing a vacuum that needs to be filled, and the profitability is one of those factors that is kind of undetermined. It really has to be a general consensus, which inevitably will happen, that miners vote with their
No,
hash
we don't
power.
know that. We don't know if it will. The
Well,
merge is one of the most talked about events in crypto history, basically, and we don't. Nobody knows what's going to happen at mid-September. We do
oh, I
know that
see. Yeah.
it will probably be unprofitable to mine for. I mean, the sentiment right now is it will probably be unprofitable to mine as long as this bear cycle goes,
Mm.
and that's like determined by two factors, like the price and emissions of the, or that's three factors, but the price and emissions of the the cryptocurrency that you want to mine, like how
Hmm.
much is the block reward, how much does the coin actually cost, and the difficulty of the coin to mine. For those of you who are not into cryptocurrency mining, there's a difficulty adjustment that happens when more miners come on the network. There are more people to find the blocks, but you want to keep a block time at a certain rate. At Ergo, it's like 2 minutes. Um, so as the more miners come on, the difficulty increases. So you don't have like a sped up block times or a sped up emission of the blocks. So all these people who will be piling in or coming off of ETH, they will completely crush the difficulty of Ravencoin, Flux, Ergo, probably also things like Casper and Ethereum Classic and stuff. So whatever profitability you're seeing right now is just a moment in time. It will probably, most likely, it's not financial advice, but it will probably be unprofitable to mine unless one of these coins has like an amazing price discovery. And that is very, very unlikely. Not trying
Yeah,
to be a downer, but this is just the real of what's going to happen.
sure. Well, eventually, there has to be a consolidation around the champion. It's usually what happens. We saw that with Ethereum. It's probably time for a likely candidate like Ergo to take that baton and run with it. I think Flux is also a great. It has a unique value proposition. Let's just say that, and
Great
it's
marketing as
and
well.
definitely worth its time to look into that. And it has ties to Ergo as well. I strongly believe we need to put bridges, both literally and figuratively, between very serious projects that focus on decentralization and have an archipelago of islands where there's more communication and channels of partnership and cooperation between them versus trying to isolate ourselves into different tribes. Um, Now, with Ergo's case, obviously, both of us being from that community primarily, it goes without saying there's a bit of bias here when we say, hey, if you look at the facts, right? If you're looking at a DeFi sandbox, open source tooling, pretty much infrastructure laid out in front of you to build what you want, and different an innumerable amount of use cases around that, especially as we get Rosin Bridge and other developments on the line, right? We won't dive too much into that, but in terms of a sort of sandbox of, I'd say DeFi, but DeFi is kind of a limiting term, but as a DeFi toolbox, an open source platform, Ergo's really the only one of those GPU coins that you could really call that, correct? To replace
Call
an open a DeFi sandbox,
a DeFi
a
sandbox.
platform. Yeah.
I mean, you could build on Flux, you could build on Casper, you can build on Komodo. I wouldn't say that it's the only one. I will say for someone like me, I'm not a developer. but I happened to learn enough to actually start this project, GuapSwap. So I think what Ergo has going for it is that everything is open source, and as of this moment, it's a very small community and it's a very friendly community. So people are very willing to help you. I mean, people are messaging the basically the founder. Like people are messaging Kushti on the Discord, and he'll be answering development questions and things like that. So it ticks a lot of the boxes for a good, I would say, a good developer experience, a good place to go after the Ethereum merge, and yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes. But it's I don't, even though I am biased, I'm very hesitant to say like that it's the only one, because obviously there are a lot of places you can go, and it's all up to personal preference, right?
Sure. But if we also look at the variety of tools available, right? Optional privacy, Oracle data, Sigma protocols, NepoPal, the whole spectrum, and also the fact that it is also built from the ground up, with its own scripting language, and seeking to kind of adopt that mentality that we should have a lot of open source libraries, smart contracts. Smart contracts in of itself, I don't know if you can say that for most of those GPU coins, although there may be some, like you said, that are kind of not coming to mind right now.
Raptorium has smart contracts. I do think that the more I learn about crypto and development and stuff, I can't remember. There's some side chain on ETH now called CK something, zero knowledge something. And when you read into it, you're like, oh, Ergo's had this for like since launch. Oh, people are building a mixer. Oh, Ergo has had this since basically launch. So when you look at the tech available on Ergo, it's all there, like the full stack of things. Like one of the things that are lacking at the moment, because we are still, and it's so cliche to say in crypto, like we are still very early. So the more documentation and the more projects that build on Ergo, the more documentation there will be. So we'll leave like a paper trail for developers in the future. So I
Yeah.
think like it's like you said, the tool set and the technology stack here on Ergo is very powerful. And as the community grows, and we've seen on Twitter these past few days, like there's a lot of people paying attention to Ergo right now. Obviously, there are a lot of people paying attention to proof of work coins in general, but like people are seeing like, okay, there's something about it, right?
Yeah. Without going too far down that rabbit hole, there's also Alephium, which I'd be remiss not to mention them as well, as they come up with smart contract designs. And
They're in the UTXO Alliance as well, right?
yeah, they have their unique proposal for implementations of things that aren't currently seen in the space, such as block flow, which is kind of a term they coined. You could check that out on their website as well. And proof of useful work, which I know Flux has their own.
Nobody
Flux.
has a working implementation yet, but it's a very interesting thing to look at.
So I keep getting these terms wrong. Forgive me, Flux or Alephium, if I get them wrong, because one of them calls it proof of useful work, and the other one has a term called proof of less work. I think Alephium is proof of useful work, where if the difficulty it's inverted. Of course, it's inverted.
Proof of less work, yeah.
Proof of less work. They're just
I think
so similar.
But
anyway, in terms of the name is similar, but what they do is completely different. So proof of whatever work on Alephium is that as the network difficulty goes up with the amount of miners, there's something with the emissions that changes to compensate. So it's like a counterbalance mechanism. But anyway, we could talk about this for days. And we only
Yes.
have about 15 minutes for now. Maybe we'll talk more about these things next time. Talk to me about, put yourself in the shoes of somebody that's never mined. They may have a gaming computer. They don't know where to start. What would you recommend as beginner tips to help figure out if their GPU is, first of all, a candidate, meaning they have the minimal VRAM requirements to actually mine? And that
Yeah.
varies between the mineable crypto assets that they choose to mine as well. Are there any websites, resources where they can just right off the bat see profitability, know whirlpools they can go and essentially whattomine.com is kind of like that, but what would you
That's where
say?
you want to go. Well, obviously, another crypto cliche is do your own research.
Mhm.
But I would, there are a lot of spectacular crypto mining YouTubers, Red Panda Mining, Rabbit Mining, Son of a Tech, Bitsby Tripping, DJ Mines, Chump Change, XD, Max Voltage. All these guys have thousands of hours of useful content. Some of them have daily live webcasts talking about what's going on. They have how-to tutorials. So like go Seb FinTech, the hobbyist miner, like go to these websites and or like on YouTube and watch their how-to videos. It's very easy to get started. I think the hardest thing for me to navigate as a newbie was having the guts to download some of this mining software and have I downloaded a virus? You know, is my computer getting crypto jacked? And if you start doing your research and watching these videos on YouTube, they will show you the correct addresses to the GitHub repositories where you can go and download the mining software. And once you have the mining software, you can basically start mining with any graphics cards that has more than 4 gigabytes of video
VRAM.
memory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of what's the most efficient, obviously the bigger the graphics card you have, the more hash power and the more coins you will be making. But obviously, the more power consumption you'll be having. So it's like finding a happy medium. And I think now for my personal preference, price to performance to like energy usage, I
Mm-hmm.
think the 3060 Ti is where you want to go. It'll do like 60 mega hash on ETH. It'll do 170 on Ergo. It'll do like 35, I think, on Ravencoin. Yeah, so something like that. It's cheap to get in, and then obviously as you go along, you want to monitor how much electricity you're burning and how much your electricity costs. Because ultimately, like you said in the start, what you want to do, ultimately, if you want to mine, nobody will be mining over time if they're not turning a profit. So obviously, if the electric bill is greater than the amount of coins that you're getting, it makes sense to just buy the coins right now. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you want to pay for the electric just because you like to mine, you can do that. But always be mindful, if you're burning more electricity than you're making in coins, maybe just consider buying the coins. Because we are going to see a period of non-profitability probably in most proof of work coins in the next however long this bear cycle is going to last.
I see. The 3060 Ti is by who? AMD, NVIDIA?
No, this is from NVIDIA.
Okay.
Obviously, if you want to go with the most, this is like a mainstream. There is like the most power efficient to hash rate card is an NVIDIA card called the A2000. It's like this little workstation GPU. It does 100 mega hash on ergo and only draws like 70 watts, which is like, you don't get more efficient than that. But they're also somewhat in high demand because they're so efficient, right?
Oh, cool. What was the name of that one again? The final one?
A2000.
A2000 from NVIDIA. Interesting. Um,
Yeah.
so it sounds like the 3060 Ti and this A2000 from NVIDIA are very good for ergo in particular, based on what you told me the mega hash was specifically for ergo versus other
Yeah.
ones, other
In
cores out
general,
there.
NVIDIA are better for ergo.
Have you seen the difference between mining? Well, first of all, what else do you mine other than erg? Identify yourself,
Well,
trader.
obviously, right now I don't mine erg because I had a nice little run from August to March last year. Right now, because of my the tax jurisdiction I'm in,
Oh yeah,
for this last long time, I've only been able to pay taxes by liquidating Bitcoin, but this has just changed because a new exchange has opened up where I can also liquidate ETH. So I wanted to round out my portfolio with Bitcoin, and Two Miners has a profit swapping thing where you can mine
right.
ETH and get paid out in Bitcoin. That's also like the inspiration kind of for GuapSwap. But right now, up until very recently, I was mining Chia as well, which is like this hard drive mining thing.
Sure.
I also mine Helium. I have 2 Helium hotspots. And then obviously right now I'm mining ETH into Bitcoin. But as soon as the merge happens, depending on when my payouts hit and whatever, I'll be switching back to Ergo. Because the thing about mining ergo as a miner is that it's so much more power efficient. You take like 20 to 30% of the power consumption, meaning that lower temperatures, you can lower the fan speeds. It's much more easier on the cards, which means less maintenance. It's like I could go Flux as well. Flux is a really interesting project, but it's so tough on the GPUs because it both uses memory and core, so they get hot. The power consumption is so much more. So it's like I'm a guy who's like a set it and forget it guy. And I remember back in August last year setting up things to mine ergo. I could go weeks without a rig going down because it's so like low maintenance.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it. You kind of already touched on it. The mining algorithm for Ergo is called Autologous V2. Compared to other things you've mined, you pretty much already answered your question, but you're observing that kind of uh, less friction involved with
Yes.
actually using it, correct? Than other
Like
cryptocurrencies.
Son of a Tech, the YouTuber, he had like a really good saying, like from an infrastructure provider standpoint, Ergo is the place to go because less power draw, less heat, less fan speed. It's like your maintenance will be much lower. And crypto mining is it's a very stressful endeavor because rigs will go down. You have to replace thermal pads and fans and stuff, and you want as little of that as humanly possible. And that's I can't wait. People have been asking me like, why do you want the merge to happen? Because like I want a good excuse to go back to mining Earth because it's like if if mining ETH is like being in a coal mine, mining ERG is kind of like living the surfer bum life. You just relax and things just kind of take care of themselves. Obviously, there's some work, but there's so much less maintenance involved with it, which like I can't wait to get back to.
Perfect. Do you have any advice on Well, first of all, what temperature should people want to keep their GPUs at in Celsius? Sorry, Americans, which I am, but um, I see my things in Celsius when I look at
Celsius is the way to go. It's
well,
the
the
you
mining
want to go the
software,
metric
right?
system. Yeah,
The mining
yeah.
software just gives it to you. It just pumps it out in Celsius. So I just kind of look at that number. What would you like? What should somebody target in terms of heat in
Yeah. So
Celsius for their GPU cards?
obviously, since it's a memory intensive algorithm, and most memory modules do not like to run over 100 degrees Celsius. So you want to keep the memory below 100. Obviously, there are some cards who have very poor cooling of the memory. I'm talking 3080s, 3080 Ti's, 3090s. They have very poor cooling. They will run at full efficiency at up to like 106
Really? I thought it was more
Celsius.
like 75 to 80 degrees Celsius.
This is optimal, right? But you are running in a hot environment. But GDDR6X, for example, they will run at full capacity at up to like 104. But obviously, you want to keep them as cool as possible. When you're talking core temperatures, running a GPU, in my experience, and I took note when Bitspeed Tripping said this, like running a GPU at like 70 degrees Celsius is fine if you can even like turn the fan speed down to like below 50%. Again, less fan replacements and stuff like that. So like you don't have to keep them in the 40s or 50s or whatever. You can go 60, 70, no problem. If it means that you can lower the fan speeds. And obviously you want to work with your power limits as well. You don't want a card to be just unlimited, so it'll just run the power that it wants. Most cards will run more efficient and less hot if you set the correct power limit. And there is a spreadsheet in the I think it's on Ergo platform. There's somewhere in the Ergo community where there's this big spreadsheet where you can go find overclocks for every GPU out there. That's a great resource.
Perfect. Apart from that, I wanted to ask you, does for miners like yourself, uh, do you view it more as a hobby, a recreational hobby, a side business? And on top of that, with ERG, it's very hard to not take into account the 85% drop in block rewards over the next several years. Would you feel that mining at a loss short term would help to offset, you know, that lack of profitability if you have a pretty much a guarantee that what you're mining is going to be incredibly scarce in the future? It's kind of a complex question. It's a short-term sacrifice for a long-term reward. But as we've already mentioned a million times, and everybody talks about, mining is a business. So I just want to know how you view mining, and are you willing to break that rule of short-term profitability if you know that you are kind of undergoing four halvings with ERG over the next several years very quickly?
Well, a complicated question will
Yes.
require a complicated answer.
Yeah.
So first of all, if you're wanting to get into mining, there are no guarantees. There have been plenty of projects in the past that have looked very promising that never turned out into anything. So my plan is always to, like, however much I think the Ethereum is basically the devil, it's not bad to be diversified into it. And would I be willing to short-term mine at a loss? Sure. But short-term is definitely not a year. Like if you're losing money, if you have the ability, like Red Panda is doing, he has the ability to pay his electric bill out of pocket and just keep mining just because he loves to GPU mine. But not everyone will have that that ability, and there is no guarantee that I sound like such a downer. I would like to be like rah rah, Ergo is going to for sure make everyone a millionaire, Lambo win and all that. But just be sure that and everyone has a different risk tolerance, right? If you were guaranteed that things were going to the moon, who wouldn't be mining? When I look at from a like I mine pretty much as a hobby. It is obviously supplemental income, but it is a hobby because I'm a big nerd, and I like the tinkering and the technical challenge of it. But at some point, if it was very unprofitable, I would have to turn off my rigs. That does not mean that I would sell my rigs, because when the next bull run comes around, having those GPUs, just like we saw in the last cycle, all those RX 580s, old AMD GPUs, they got spun up and were super profitable during the bull run, like
Right.
both in terms of what coins they could mine, but also in resale value. So should I come to the point where I say to myself, I should probably shut off my rigs, I would just store everything and keep it for the next bull cycle. Now, that being said, when I think about it, having analyzed the different cryptos, the different proof of work alternatives, and looking at Ergo, and looking at, that whole sentiment of it being the next spiritual successor to Bitcoin, like I think there's some truth to that. Looking at the tech, looking at the scarcity that's coming, looking at the support for miners, looking at what people are building, GuapSwap, check out the GitHub and the Twitter, it's going to be I think it's going to be a good time for miners. And I would advise any miner to say, okay, this is probably the best time to speculate a little. So get a little get a little Flux, get a little Raven coin, get a little Neoxa, some Casper. All these projects are good. And it's kind of like, who would not have liked to buy Apple stock like 20 years ago? But if you do, not financial advice, but if you do decide to speculate, think about this being a thing that won't pay off probably for the next 5 years. Just have that in mind. Okay, whatever I do now, it'll probably be maybe even 10 years, maybe like 5 to 10 years. That's a good like time horizon to think about investments. So like, if you do want to get into mining, it's great. It's great to learn about hardware, running things, calculating profits and stuff like that. But think about it. It'll be an investment that probably won't be meaningful for you within the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. Yeah, you have to undergo, I suppose, some risk and have a sense of adventure in order to do something like this. I mean, for what it's worth, I say often that, well, I don't say often, but I have said before that people regret not mining Bitcoin early on.
Yes.
When people didn't even understand that was a thing, or that they could, or even how, they have more questions than answers. But the ones that did understand, or at least believe in the vision of it, early on look like geniuses. But back then, the lack of value attached to it in terms of a fiat currency standpoint was mitigated, or was really saturated with the risk involved in doing so, and knowing that this wasn't a profitable thing to do at the time. And a long-term hold is usually the best strategy. And sometimes that comes into direct conflict with mining profitability, which is very much How profitable is this coin? Can I cover my overhead costs and things like that? It's a fine balance, and it's not always there. And you are essentially voting to pick winners through your hash power. And like you said, not everything's guaranteed. Um, Finally, I wanted
Well,
to wrap up.
nothing is
Yeah, go ahead.
guaranteed. Nothing
Nothing's
is
guaranteed.
guaranteed.
Yes.
I, I,
I
I would
wanted,
say that
yeah,
just one last thing about mining, which I think a lot of the mining companies that got into things in the big crypto boom is like, think about analyzing. I would recommend people paying attention to Bob Lucas's the 4-year cycle, which describes the cyclical nature of Bitcoin, which is highly indicative of where the markets are going over time. And if you are planning to mine long term, think about when the market is peaking, think about moving into a cash position. So, because nothing goes up forever. And the mining companies who did not cash out their Bitcoin at the height of the cycle, they are now forced to sell all their coins at a loss. So when the mining now in the bear market, you'll get a lot of coins. And when the market peaks again, sell off some of those coins so you have a cash position so you can pay electric, acquire more GPUs or ASICs or whatever you wanna mine with. Um, so don't be too focused on the coins. You know, cash is also something that you want to look at if you're thinking about this as a business.
perfect. Yeah, I appreciate your insights. Yeah, I'm sure the viewers do as well. To wrap up this conversation, I just wanted to ask you 2 or 3 quick rapid fire questions. Um, in Ergo's case, we do have this unique feature, thanks to GetBlock's innovation, building out their mining pool with Ergo script, actually, of subpooling and smart pools, and basically being able to mine indirectly tokenized assets that are not proof of work, which is immensely interesting and opens up a whole new paradigm for the future of mining. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you view smart pools and what you feel the role of smart pools will be in the future of mining? And what do you envision mining to be like in the future in general, smart pool or not?
Well, I think smart pools are the future. Even though GetBlock is, when you look at it, it is a centralized entity that provides mining things. But when you are mining to a smart contract, you take some of the human elements out of it and make it more fair and more transparent. And it basically, the smart pools of Ergo basically allow you and your friends to run your own mining pool, to pool your hash power and do that, which I think decentralization is the future. And obviously, smart pools and the ability to pay out different tokens on the blockchain, your ability to get paid out in Neta and ErgoPad. That's some of the things that GuapSwap is working on. So I think what GetBlock are doing is like nothing short of revolutionary, and I think it's the future of mining in general. So like what those guys are doing are like they are first movers in a space that will be like it's a completely new space. There are no one else doing this, and they are first movers. So I'm like in awe of what those guys are doing. And obviously, GuapSwap may or may not be having some partnership with them in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, I know back in the Ethereum days, there were many theories around smart pools, but the problem with that was obviously the the volume of microtransactions that would have had to take place on Ethereum. Gas fees made it inadequate, and there were a lot of bottlenecks. So it was beautiful to finally see the world's first ever smart pool, being built and birthed out of ErgoScript. Regardless of who decides to take that and run with it, it's important to see kind of, if nothing else, that's already a major milestone for the whole entire proof of work mining community, because it will allow so many new opportunities for fair initial mining offerings to be had, and different game theory and market incentives as well. For example, you can earn ErgoPad through one of GuapSwap's smart pools, and it's a dedicated pool. And basically, 10% of the erg you earn while mining with that pool, you'll get 10% of that paid out in ErgoPad at a small advantageous multiplier against market price. So it's just a whole slew of things that come out of that. And also, it's important to know that GuapSwap, their code for building the smart pool infrastructure is also open source. So that's also neat as well. Plasma as well is being utilized over there to also accelerate the pace of payouts. So you don't have to meet all of these minimum requirements that, end up becoming barriers to entry and also barriers to payment that you're rightfully owed. And it's a beautiful thing. So with that being said, check out GuapSwap again. They were the first ones willing to do my interview series. And they are also working hard on developing a decentralized mining swapping
profit
program.
swapping, so you can get paid out in the tokens that you want.
Yeah, directly, without having to get this thing and then sell it for that thing and sell it for that thing. And it can help you for tax purposes as well in some jurisdictions, which is one of the reasons you decided to do that in the first place. And also feel free to check out Jesper and the rest of his work on Twitter. What is your Twitter handle?
I don't
know. The
Agargacker
or whatever?
I think it's the Agargaga.
I'll put it in the description. And feel free to reach out to him. Feel free to reach out to him for minor questions and things like that. He's always looking to help. And thank you so much for your time and helping to provide sort of like an opinionated introduction into what mining is right now and what it will be like in the future.
No worries, man.
No worries, man. All right. Thank you all for watching. Let me know if there's any other conversations you would like us to have on this channel. And try not to run away without subscribing. I'm going to have to start saying that because I'm plateauing in my subscriber count. So now I have to pedal the please subscribe thing. So if you haven't, please do and share it with people you know and love. All right. Have a great one. Bye.